Hello, this is the Harboring Light. This is Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. As I do in the beginning of each episode of my podcast, I mention social media and audio platforms. And to add on it, I'm on Substack. I write on Substack as a supplement for my podcast. And that link will be provided and along with social media. So, audio platforms. I'm on Audible, Amazon Music. I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm on Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Pandora, and I'm looking to grow to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I'm on that. And also, please feel free to give me a rating. I appreciate all you listeners out there, and feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So this episode is about the history of champagne. I'm going to give my thoughts on it and everything else. All right, so let's get into it. I think champagne is an interesting symbolism throughout history. What I mean by this, the Middle Ages, wine, alcoholic beverages was seen as for health purposes to drink due to the water and the sterilization of water. And champagne was seen as a status symbol, for the elite to have. And throughout today, champagne is seen as something that's part of celebration, something that's part of just celebrating your joy, celebrating whether it be your success, what have you. And then also with sophistication in class, you see that in particularly in parties and everything throughout history, particularly in the Roaring 20s and so on and so forth, with the association with that, and then the association with New Year's Eve parties when you see champagne and all of that. So, let's get into it. Champagne. Wine has been made for over 7,000 years, and effervescent wine for just as long, since sealing wine before the fermentation is complete will naturally produce it. True sparkling wine, though, a wine that is clear from cloudy impurities, was invented in the Champagne region of France in the 17th century. The perfection of the method that removes the unattractive clouds, which had long bespoiled fizzy wine, is widely credited, rightly or wrongly, to a monk and cellar master at the Benedict Abbey of Hauveliers, Juan Dom-Perignon, 1638 to 1715. It was at this abbey near Reims in France that a veritable revolution would occur, which transformed the region's fortune and changed forever the production and popularity of sparkling wine. Champagne was born with the creation of successful houses such as Ruinart-Moyet, Veuve Clicquot, and Pommery. The amber nectar would conquer all corners and become the single most famous wine in the world, and a byword for excellence, celebration, and luxury. It was the Romans who introduced the vine to northern Gaul in the 1st century CE, and they were already accomplished viticulturists, fully aware of the benefits of maximizing climate and soil conditions. Pruning, grafting, and training vines were common practice, and all of these skills would be needed to grow quality grapes in the cool northern climate of the Champagne region of northern France. It was not until the 19th century, though, that the wines of the region, still not yet truly sparkling, took off in popularity. This helped in no small measure by the growing importance of the city of Reims and its cathedral where French kings were crowned. In the 13th century, Champagne wine acquired an international reputation thanks to the great trade fairs held annually in the region. The Counts of Champagne knew that by endorsing these fairs, which sometimes lasted 6 weeks, and by approving trade incentives, they could encourage English, Spanish, and Italian merchants to import champagne to new markets. By the following century, most of the area around Reims was planted with vines. Wine had become big business. The wine being produced in the Champagne region might have been popular, but it was still the murky drunk common everywhere. By the mid-17th century, though, winemakers were beginning to experiment with wine made only from white grapes and with various methods that made clearer wine, an endeavor helped by Champagne's climate tendency to produce black grapes, which only lightly colored the wine. The first attempts to deliberately produce sparkling wines were also being made as opposite to the somewhat accidental production which resulted from winemakers trying, in fact, to avoid fizzy red wine, but bottling before fermentation was complete. These two approaches could have combined by the monks of Halleurs, amongst them one of the most famous names in the world of wine, Dom Perignon. Dom Perignon has acquired a legendary status as the inventor of the sparkling champagne we know and love today, but the mythology surrounding him has obscured the contribution made by those who came before him and his contemporaries both in France and England. The celebrated monk and his legendary status has also been cleverly marketed ever since Moët and Chandon bought the Abbey of Hôteliers in 1823. What we do not know is that Perignon lived from 1638 to 1750, and following his admission to the Benedictine Abbey of Saint Van in 1658, he quickly was impressed. Over the next decade, he acquired both the honorary title of Dom and the second most prestigious post at the Abbey, cellar master. In a career that spanned 47 years, the wine this meticulous monk produced became famous not as the producer of the Hôteliers Abbey, but as the Vins de Perignon. Dom Perignon blended wines from different vineyards to produce a distinctive and consistent blend, still an essential practice of today. Perhaps the essential component of the complex process of producing champagne. Although he may not have been the one to invent true sparkling wine, indeed his brief was probably the very opposite, and to try and eliminate the undesirable bubbles from red wine. The monk did speed the process along towards the drink we know today. He is credited in a treatise written by the star pupil and successor Pierre, which producing the first real still red wine. He also created the traditional champagne press, which was lighter and faster, thus reducing the time the skins were in contact with the juice, greatly increasing the wine's final clarity. Another important decision was Dom Perignon's return to using cork stoppers, which were a much better seal than the previous wood and hemp plugs, ensuring less carbon dioxide, and so magic sparkles escaped from the wine. He employed stronger English glass bottles to ensure far fewer exploded from the pressure of fermentation and higher cellar temperatures, the frequent nightmare of all wine producers of the period. Finally, and most importantly of all, he perfected the process of producing clear white wine using black grapes. All of the key components were now in place to produce a reliable and more appealing, clear, and sparkling wine. By the next century, champagne production and storage would be further protected by figures such as Jean-Remy Mott and Madame Cliquot Pont-Saint-Don, the widow known as the Veuve Cliquot. This and masterful marketing would ensure that champagne was ready to conquer the world. Alright, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and very happy New Year. Bye-bye now.